Alright, so we know how to factor, we know how to solve word problems, and now we're going to put them together. On number 1 for your Unit 8 notes, quadratic equation applications, it says if a number is subtracted from its square, the result is 12. Find the number. So we're going to call the number x. We'll say x is a number. And when it says is subtracted from its square, its is referring back to x, so we're going to say its square would be x squared. So when it says a number is subtracted from its square, that means we have x squared minus x. The result is 12, so x squared minus x equals 12. And if you notice, our equation is set up to factor and solve. Our rule for solving is to get everything on one side. We want this set equal to 0, so what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the 12 over like we've done before. And we have x squared minus x minus 12 equals 0. Now it's set up to factor. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 12 and add to give me negative 1. We've done this before. Our factors of negative 12, we could use negative 1 and positive 12, positive 1 and negative 12. We could use negative 2 and positive 6, positive 2 and negative 6, or we could use negative 3, positive 4, positive 3, and negative 4. The set that's going to add together to give us negative 1 would be 3 and negative 4. So our two factors here are x plus 3 and x minus 4. And then to solve it, either x plus 3 is 0. So if we subtract the 3 over, we know x is negative 3. Or x minus 4 is 0. So when we add 4 over, x is positive 4. Now, the trick to these word problems is to make sure that your answer makes sense. If we were to check our answer, then if I square negative 3 and then subtract negative 3 from that, I should get 12. And here we have negative 3 squared is 9, minus negative 3 is the same thing as plus 3. And we know 9 plus 3 is 12. So the negative 3 does work. And then I'm going to do the same thing with positive 4. 4 squared minus 4 should give me 12. 4 squared is 16. And 16 minus 4 is also 12. So both of these are going to work. Negative 3 or positive 4 works for this equation. Now, number 2 is very similar. We're just going to read it word for word. It says twice a number, so we're going to say that would stand for 2x, 2 times x, is our equal to sign, 16 less than its square. Remember from number 1, its square just means x squared. Now, 16 less than, that's where I see a huge mistake most of the time. That does not mean 63 minus. That means x squared minus 63. So our equation for this problem is going to be 2x equals x squared minus 63. Now we need to set this up in order to factor it, so we're going to subtract the 2x over. Now we're just going to solve it. If we subtract the 2x to both sides, I'm going to write this in our standard order. So I have 0 equals x squared minus 2x minus 63. Now it's ready to factor. Now I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 63 and add to give me negative 2. And the two factors we're going to use are negative 9 and positive 7. If you need to list out all the factors of 63 to find those two, go for it. If you can do it in your head, that's great too. So my two factors are x minus 9 and x plus 7. Now I'm just going to solve it out. X minus 9 is 0. Or x plus 7 is 0. Add the 9 over. We have x equals 9. Subtract 7 over. And we have x equals negative 7. Now, same as number 2, We need to check to make sure these make sense. If I plug this into my original equation, 2 times 9 should equal 9 squared minus 63. 2 times 9 is 18. This should equal 81 minus 63, which it does, so I know 9 works. And then same thing for negative 7. We have 2 times negative 7 should equal negative 7 squared minus 63. We have negative 14 equals 49 minus 63, which also works. So both of our answers work on this problem. Alright, on number 3 it says a negative number is 30 less than its square. Find the number. We're going to actually say that x is a negative number on this problem. So since we are looking for a negative number, then you need to double check and make sure your answer at the end is negative. If you get a positive number, then something's wrong. So a negative number we're going to call x is, there's our equal to sign, 30 less than its square. Remember, its square is our x squared, and 30 less than is not 30 minus, but minus 30. So our equation for this problem is going to be x equals x squared minus 30. Just like on number 2, we're just going to set this up to solve by subtracting the x over. And we have 0 equals x squared minus x minus 30. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 30 and add to give me negative 1. We could use 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. I need one positive and one negative since 30 is negative. So we're going to use 5 and 6 and make it x minus 6 and x plus 5, because negative 6 plus 5 would give me negative 1. Now when we actually solve this one out, we have x minus 6 is 0 and we have x plus 5 is 0. Here we're going to add 6, so x is 6, and then we're going to subtract 5, so x is negative 5. Now remember, from the question we want the negative number, so the answer we are going to use here is negative 5. We're not going to use the x equals 6 because that is a positive number. If I check this, I can plug it in. Negative 5 should equal negative 5 squared minus 30, and negative 5 is equal to 25 minus 30, so I know it works. Alright, number 4 is very similar to 1, 2, and 3. So what I want you to do is I want you to try number 4 on your own, and we will check that in class tomorrow. I will be checking to make sure that you try number 4, set up your equation, and then actually solve it. We're going to move on to number 5. Number 5 says 2 consecutive negative even integers have a product of 624. Now, we have dealt with consecutive integers and consecutive even integers before, but now we're actually dealing with their product. So first we're going to name our two variables. We're going to say x is our first even integer, and remember, even and odd numbers go by 2's, so we're going to say x plus 2 is our second even integer. Now your two answers at the end of this problem should both be even, and they should be consecutive. So to set this up, my two integers have a product of 624. So x times x plus 2 should equal 624. Here's my equation for this problem. Now I'm going to set it up to factor it. Actually, to solve this one, we're going to have to distribute that x. So x times x gives me x squared. X times 2 is 2x, and this equals 624. In order to factor, we're going to subtract the 624 over. We need everything on one side. So x squared plus 2x minus 624 equals 0. Now this is a pretty big number here. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 624 and add to give me positive 2. This may take you a while to figure out, but you have a calculator and you can play with the numbers and divide what you need to find the two factors. For the sake of time, I'm just going to say that positive 26 and negative 24 multiply to give me 624 and add to give me positive 2. So my two factors here are x plus 26. Let's rewrite that. X plus 26 and x minus 24 equals 0. So when x plus 26 equals 0, we get negative 26 when we subtract it over. And when x minus 24 equals 0, we get positive 24. Now, my two answers for this problem, we got a positive number and a negative number. We want two negative numbers because they're going to multiply to give me 624. So we are actually going to use negative 24 and negative 26. These are two consecutive negative even integers, and when you multiply these together, you get positive 624. X plus 2 is negative 26 plus 2, so really the negative 24 is standing for our x plus 2. We found our two integers. So this would be my answer. Now, number 6 is very similar to what you've seen before. This is our rectangle problem. Remember, anytime you have a rectangle problem, I want you to draw your rectangle. On this one, it says the length of a rectangle is 8 centimeters greater than twice its width. This should actually say greater, not greater. So my length I'm going to label as W, actually 2W plus 8, because it's 8 more than twice its width. The width is just going to be W here. So when we set up area, before we always set up our perimeter. So we labeled all the sides and added them all up. But area, if you remember, is just your length times your width. So I have this length times this width, which would be W times 2W plus 8. Now the area they gave me is 42. So we have 42 equals W times 2W plus 8. Just like on the one before, to set this up to solve, I'm going to distribute the W. So we have 42 equals 2W squared plus 8W. Now subtract the 42 over. You should be good at solving this by now. 0 equals 2W squared plus 8W minus 42. Now this one has a GCF that we can factor out. I want you to always take out the GCF if there is one. I can actually factor out a 2 here and make it W squared plus 4W minus 21. Two numbers that multiply to give me negative 21 and add to give me positive 4 are going to be 7 and negative 3. So our factors are 2, W plus 7, and W minus 3. I'm going to move it over here to finish it. And so either W plus 7 is going to equal 0 or W minus 3 is going to equal 0. Here, when we subtract 7 over, we get W is negative 7. And here, when you add the 3 over, we get W equals 3. Now, we need to pick the answer that's going to make the most sense. If you notice, we can't have a negative width on a rectangle, so we're not going to use the negative 7, but we are going to use W equals 3. So for the first part of my answer, I know my width is 3. I could relabel my rectangle with the width of 3. Now to find my length, I have 2 times W, so 2 times 3 plus 8. This is my length, which we get 6 plus 8, which is 14. So my width is 3, I know, and my length is 14. There's my two dimensions. And I know this is true because 3 times 14 is 42, so it checks for my area. And then the second part of the question says, what is the perimeter? So if I relabel my rectangle, my length is 14, my width is 3, then the perimeter is just going to be all your sides added up. So pay attention to what it's asking for. If it asks for area, then it's length times width. But if it asks for perimeter, it's all